My name is Zara Ahmed. I am 27 years old, and I work as a junior accountant at a small firm in the city. Numbers make sense to me. They're honest. They do not smile at your face and then lock the door behind you. People, on the other hand, are a different story, especially the ones who are supposed to be your family. I was 5 years old when my mother passed away. A car accident on a rainy Tuesday morning. I still remember the smell of wet cement that day, though I do not know why my brain chose to hold on to that detail and let go of so many others. My father remarried 2 years later. Her name was Nadia. She came with a daughter from her first marriage, a girl named Sana, who was 1 year younger than me. My father sat me down and said, "Now we are a real family again." I smiled because that was what he needed to see. But even at 7 years old, something in me already understood that a real family is not something you announce. It is something you feel. I never felt it. Nadia was not the kind of stepmother who screamed and threw things. She was smarter than that. She was the kind of woman who smiled at every guest, spoke softly in public, and made you feel invisible in ways she could always explain away. When guests came, Sana sat in the living room laughing and pouring tea. I was sent to the kitchen to bring out plates. When school photos were taken, Nadia framed Sana's on the wall. Mine stayed in a drawer because she said the lighting was off. When Sana wanted dance classes, they started the next week. When I asked for a basic winter coat in 9th grade, Nadia looked at my father and said I was always asking for something. My father was not a cruel man. He was just a weak one. And sometimes weak is worse, because at least cruelty is honest about what it is. He saw what was happening in that house. He heard the comments. He noticed the difference in how we were treated. And he said nothing, because saying nothing kept his wife happy, and keeping his wife happy was the most important thing in his world. I understood that early. I just had to decide what to do with it. The one person in my life who never made me feel like a burden was my grandmother. My father's mother. I called her Dottie John. She had a small apartment on the other side of the city, and I visited her every chance I got. She made chai too sweet and talked too much about old films, and she was the only adult in my family who looked at me like I was worth looking at. She never said much about Nadia directly. She did not have to. Sometimes she would just hold my hand and say, "God sees everything, John." I used to think that was just something old people say. Later, I understood she meant it as a promise. When I turned 18, I moved out. I rented a small room near my college with money I had saved from tutoring neighborhood kids since I was 15. My father called it unnecessary. Nadia said I was being dramatic. Sana posted a story on Instagram about having the room to herself finally. I did not look back. The years that followed were quiet in the way that hard work is quiet. I graduated. I got a job. I built something small but mine. I still visited Dottie John every Sunday. I drove her to her medical appointments when my father was too busy. I helped her organize her papers, fix things around her apartment, call her bank when something was wrong. I did not do these things because I wanted anything from her. I did them because she was the only home I had ever actually felt inside of. 2 years ago, Dottie John asked me to take her somewhere without telling my father. I assumed it was a doctor she was embarrassed about. It was not. It was a lawyer's office. She sat across from him with her purse in her lap and her back straight, and she updated her will. Afterward, in the car, she turned to me and said, "I am telling you now because when the time comes, they will try to make you feel like you took something that was not yours." She had a savings account. A modest one, but real. And she was leaving it to me. All of it. She said she had watched for 20 years. She had watched me set the table while Sana sat down. She had watched Nadia take credit for gifts she had sent me. She had heard my father go silent when he should have spoken. She said the money was not charity. It was what she wished she had given me every year she did not. I told her she did not have to do this. She looked almost offended. She said, "I know I do not have to. That is exactly why I am doing it." I kept that secret for 2 years. I sat at dinners and listened to Nadia talk about redecorating the house. I watched Sana get her car paid for and her rent covered and her every want treated like a need. I said nothing. I just kept visiting Dottie John every Sunday and made sure she was okay. I was not waiting for revenge. I was just living my life. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew a day was coming. It came on a Wednesday evening in March. Dottie John passed away peacefully in her apartment. I was there. She had asked me to come that morning, and I had taken the day off work. She held my hand for a long time without saying much. Near the end, she opened her eyes and said my name clearly. Then she smiled and closed them again. That was the last thing she did. The funeral was 3 days later. Nadia wore her most elegant black suit and cried loudly near the front, the way people cry when they want to be seen grieving. Sana took photographs of the flowers for her social media with a caption about angels. My father looked genuinely broken, and for that I felt something close to compassion, because his grief at least was real. I sat in the back with my father's older sister, my Fupo, who had always been kind to me. She held my arm the whole time without saying a word, and that was enough. 3 days after the funeral, the lawyer contacted me. I went to his office alone. He read the will. He transferred the account details to my name. The amount was not enormous by some people's standards, but it was everything Dottie John had saved across 40 years of a simple, careful life, and it was enough to change mine completely. Enough for a down payment on a flat. Enough to breathe. That same evening, my father called. His voice was calm, but underneath it I could hear something tighter. He said the family needed to talk about Dottie John's savings. He said she had been elderly and emotional. He said decisions made in old age were sometimes not fully considered. I let him finish. Then I told him the will had been prepared with a lawyer, documented clearly, and signed when Dottie John was in full health. He said he was not questioning her love for me. He was questioning the fairness to the whole family. I asked him which part of my childhood had been fair. He went quiet. Nadia called an hour later. She did not start soft the way my father had. She said I had manipulated a sick old woman. She said Dottie John had been lonely and I had taken advantage of that. She said Sana and I were both her granddaughters and the money should be divided. I told her Sana was not her granddaughter. Dottie John was my father's mother. Sana was Nadia's daughter from another man. The silence that followed lasted a long time. Then Nadia said I had always been jealous of Sana. I told her I had always been invisible to her, which was different. Then I hung up. The messages came after that. Sana texted that I was disgusting and selfish. A cousin I had not spoken to in 3 years suddenly had opinions. My father sent a long message about family unity and how Dottie John would have wanted peace. I read every message once. I saved them. I did not reply to any of them. What none of them knew was that I also had a recording. Not something I had planned. Dottie John's lawyer had suggested it near the end, when Dottie John's health was declining and he wanted her wishes clearly preserved. She had spoken on camera for almost 20 minutes. She stated her name, the date, her full mental clarity, and then she explained her decision. She talked about specific moments she had witnessed over 2 decades. She mentioned the coat I never received. She mentioned the school photos in the drawer. She mentioned the Sunday visits no one else made. Her last line on the recording was something I have not been able to forget. She said, I am not leaving this to Zara because she asked for it. I am leaving it because she never did. When my father's lawyer contacted me suggesting the will might be challenged, I sent him the video file. I did not add any message. Just the file. The challenge was dropped within a week. I used part of the money to put a deposit on a small flat across town. The first night I slept there, I ordered food from a restaurant I had always wanted to try and ate it sitting on the floor because I did not have furniture yet. I laughed at nothing in particular for a while. Then I cried, not from sadness, but from the specific relief of something finally being over. My father has called a few times since then. Some calls I answer, some I do not. I am still deciding what kind of relationship, if any, I want to rebuild with him. He was not a monster. He was just absent in the ways that matter most, and absence has a cost. Nadia has not contacted me. Sana sent one last message calling me a snake. I did not reply. What I know now, at 27, sitting in my own home with my name on the lease and Dottie John's old prayer mat on my bedroom floor, is this. There are people in this world who will treat you like you do not matter, and then act shocked when the world does not agree with them. There are families who mistake silence for acceptance and softness for weakness. And there are grandmothers who watch everything, say little, and when the time comes, speak louder than anyone in the room ever expected. I did not win because they lost the money. I won because someone who loved me made sure I finally had proof of it. The rest of them are just learning, slowly and uncomfortably, that quiet people keep records too.